6:38 on CKNW. I have been fascinated by the emergence of Bitcoins, the virtual currency, if you will. But Bitcoins have been in the news a lot this week for all of the wrong reasons. And it seems that, like anything else that is virtual, that is found on the Internet, Bitcoins are liable for attack by cyber criminals and denial of service attacks, and now regulators talking about clamping down on Bitcoins, and just a lot of problems this week. And the guy we turn to for some insight on the world of virtual currency is Mike Young. He's an SFU art student and founded the Simon Fraser Bitcoin Club, and he's on the line with us this evening. Mike, good to talk to you.
Thanks for having me.
So what the heck's going on this week with what seems like just one piece of bad news after another?
Yeah, we started off with Apple announcing that they're banning all Bitcoin-related apps in the App Store. So that was pretty bad. And then we had heavy drops on the exchanges due to some denial of service attacks.
So Apple says that they want nothing to do with any of this, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, I suspect that for them, being involved in Bitcoin in any way might not be good for their reputation for all the wrong reasons. And secondly, Apple kind of threatens their business model if you consider what it can do to circumvent iTunes. There was
a point this week where two of the biggest Bitcoin exchanges stopped trading, and that sent the price of Bitcoins rocketing down. And this was your basic denial of service attack that we've seen on, innumerable other websites.
The case with that is because apparently MT Gox and I believe Bitstamp, two of the largest exchanges in the world, weren't doing a good job of updating their software. So basically, whatever Bitcoins that they received, they weren't accounting for it correctly, and they overestimated their total holding of Bitcoin. This means that when people want to withdraw Bitcoins, they actually don't have the Bitcoins that they need on the exchange.
And what did it do to the value? Because it drove the value of the Bitcoins down, didn't it?
Yeah, it did, because I believe MT Gox, which is in top 3 position in terms of exchanges in the U.S., just stopped permitting withdrawals altogether as of a few days ago. So there's a lot of confidence loss in the market, and it affected markets all over the world.
Well, I'll get you to stand by because we'll get into that more. Of course, any kind of currency, I suppose, is liable for attacks on it, although we don't think of it in those terms, in terms of countries' currencies. But certainly the credibility and the trustworthiness of a currency is huge. So what does this mean as far as Bitcoin's going forward and the whole issue of virtual currency? We'll get into that with Mike Young after this. Talking about Bitcoins with Mike Young from SFU, who's founder of the Simon Fraser Bitcoin Club. And Mike, we're talking about some of the problems that have befallen Bitcoin this week, and the issue of confidence, I think, is a big one. With all that's happened this week, how can people have confidence in this sort of fledgling, virtual currency?
Well, the way I see it is Bitcoin has gone through a lot of growing pains. It only hasn't been this week that it's gone through it. I mean, I've survived a time when Bitcoin went up from $1.33 right back to $1 for a day. So this is just growing pains. And with the number of merchants that are coming on board, the number of applications that are coming out to promote Bitcoin use, I believe this current downturn is just really temporary.
And what kind of merchants are getting on board with this?
Well, as you know, I believe Clearly Contacts has accepted Bitcoin sometime about a month ago. So they're a big retailer of contacts in Canada here.
The contact lens provider.
Contact lens provider, yeah. And we have Overstock.com, which is a huge online marketplace, kind of like Amazon.
Right.
They've accepted Bitcoin. The CEO is very bullish on Bitcoin. He loves Bitcoin. And you have companies like SkyTour.com, which sells airline tickets for Bitcoin. They come on board as of a month ago. So I can only see more merchants getting on board in the future.
The Canadian government this week said it's going to toughen rules that target money laundering and terrorist financing to keep a closer eye on the use of virtual currencies, which is, I suppose, one way of looking at it. On the other hand, down in the States, the superintendent of New York State's Department of Financial Services says he expects to adopt consumer disclosure rules, capital requirements, and a framework for permissible investments with consumer money. So a couple of different approaches to virtual currencies.
Yeah, certainly. And I don't think these regulations are all aligned. If anything, they strengthen the legitimacy of Bitcoin. What the Canadian government want to do is to know exactly who is buying Bitcoin and, what the likelihood of them using it for crimes might be. So, on the exchanges, they're going to require you to put in your ID, to, send in your driver license and all that. And I think that's really healthy for Bitcoin in general. As far as the U.S. goes, they're doing the same thing, but they're probably trying to protect the people with deep pockets from investing in Bitcoin without knowing exactly what they're getting into.
What is the, how shall I put it? What is the method of transparency? I mean, how does one know where the Bitcoins have come from, whether or not they have been laundered, whether, all of those kinds of issues? Of course, we don't know with currency in hand either, whether it's been, how it's gotten there. But what about the transparency issue?
Well, given how Bitcoin is, how a transaction in the BIX network is verified, you can be fairly sure that if somebody sends you a Bitcoin and on your end it's confirmed that there's the likelihood of you being cheated is, very, very low. It's just Bitcoin themselves are usable by anybody and everybody. So if you ask me, how do I know if the Bitcoin I received has been laundered, have been used by terrorists? Well, I can't tell you that with certainty, right? Yeah. But given that Bitcoin is totally traceable and transparent, that you can actually go into, for example, blockchain.info and take a look at the movement of every coin that came in and out of each Bitcoin wallet. You can actually kind of trace the transaction that goes on in the system. All you have to really know is who this wallet belongs to, and once you know that, then it becomes totally traceable. So it's not like cash. So there is some, there are ways to circumvent the system so that you're not allowing people to launder money that easily.
And you're confident that these are simply growing pains, and that the Bitcoins are something that are going to be around for a while?
Certainly. I mean, in my experience, I started getting involved in Bitcoin when they were $7 over 2 years ago, and now it's over $600 today, even with the downturn. So I'm very confident that in time it will become it won't become just a trend, but it actually be used by average people on the streets. And it's slowly becoming more and more like that. So it's just a matter of time. Same thing. The same growing pain you experienced with the internet in the beginning, most people don't know what it is, but as people become more and more accustomed to it, as more services come around to facilitate the use of the internet, it just becomes second nature to most people.
Yeah. I always appreciate your time. Thanks for joining our show. We always like to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Mike Young on the line, SFU student, founder of the Simon Fraser Bitcoin Club. 6:51 on CKNW.